Today I thought it would be cool to do a video right next to the intracoastal waterway that we have here in Miami Beach. On this side that I'm standing is Collins Avenue, and the beach is right across the street from me that way. And then on the other side, of course, you see the water here, multi-million-dollar mansions over on Pine Tree Drive, and we're gonna walk by some miniature marinas that are over here too. And hopefully it's not gonna be too noisy for you guys. Just wanna change it up, do something a little bit different. It's fun to come to these different places and show you guys different things. Now, one alarming trend that we are starting to see in our economy and that affects the housing market big time is the sheer amount of the younger generation living at home with their parents. And not just living at home with their parents, but also getting financial support from their parents. In fact, there was a recent survey done by Credit Karma, the website, and they determined that about a third of all Gen Zers and millennials are getting some sort of financial support from their parents right now. And that can mean all sorts of things, from paying for their car, to their cell phone, to their rent, whatever, guys, doesn't really matter. They're getting some sort of financial support right now from their parents. And some of these guys even get a regular allowance from their parents still, which is kind of mind-blowing, because the last time I got an allowance, I was probably like 12 years old, you know? So it's pretty funny to think about, you know, grown men and women getting allowance from their parents in their 30s or their 20s. Now, of course, a lot of the younger generation that is moving in with their parents or are living with their parents now, when they were surveyed, they said that the number one reason is because of affordability. You know, they can't afford the rent with the amount that they're making at their jobs, plus they have the student loan bills to pay on top of that, and just the overall cost of living is too high, so I'm gonna move in with mom and dad. Now, first of all, I'm not knocking this, because if you're in financial trouble and you need a place to live and your parents are offering you a temporary spot, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the danger comes with this when you start taking advantage, you know, when you start overstaying your welcome. And, you know, there's no real set time frame of what that might be, but I think most people will start getting the hint that, okay, you know, I've been living here with mom and dad for like 4 or 5 months, and I still haven't found a job or whatever, and I'm just sitting around the house all day. They're probably not gonna be too happy about that. But if you look at this chart, this trend has actually been building for a long time. It's not like this just happened overnight. In fact, ever since the 1970s, the amount of adult children living at home has been skyrocketing to the point of Great Depression levels. And this is not a joke, guys. I'm not making this up. The data is right there for you to look at. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with getting some temporary help from your parents if you need it. But the danger lies in, you know, long-term reliance on that. And I think that's going to be a harsh reality a lot of younger people are going to have to face, that at some point they're going to have to do this on their own. And if you're not finding ways to make that happen right now while you're getting help, you're going to be in a world of hurt when the help's not there anymore due to, you know, a death, or, you know, your parents themselves start having financial troubles and they can't pay for you anymore. Whatever it is, there could be things like that that are unforeseen, and now all of a sudden you have to fend for yourself again. Check this thing out. Monster yacht. Iron Lady's the name. This thing is gigantic. Because the thing is, it was determined in this survey, 69% of parents who are paying their children's way right now are having their own financial problems now because of this as well. And that's why I'm saying, don't get too reliant on this, because this could be very temporary, especially with the economy that we're going into. You know, your parents might not be doing so well, especially if they're already retired and living on a fixed income, or, you know, have their retirement fund that is being shrunk by the month right now because the stock market's getting crushed. Or even if they have a job and they're still working, there's no guarantee that they're going to have that job into 2023 with so many layoffs. So if you are living at home with your parents right now and you're relying on them to pay the bills for you, then try to help out any way you can, guys. You know, do the dishes, cut the grass, Clean the house, clean out the gutters, shovel the snow now that it's winter. Do something to at least contribute if you can't contribute financially. And if you are still working, you should be contributing financially, because even if you paid your parents, $300 a month in rent, you're never going to find a place to live at that cost, but it could be a great help to your parents. That could pay for half of the household grocery bill or the electric bill each month. Anything helps in times like this. Wow, that is pretty dirty. Wouldn't want to be swimming out here. Sometimes you see people on paddle boards out here, and I just think about, oh, how nasty it would be to fall in. But it seems like the problem with the younger generation is just compounding, guys. Not only are the amount of people who are living with their parents up to Great Depression levels, you're also seeing 20% of younger people, in their 30s or lower, that are struggling with debt right now. And of course, it's the same issues to blame, that they're not making enough money, as well as the student loan debt and whatever else is taking money out of their pocket. This is another one of those lessons that people have to learn the hard way, I guess. I learned this lesson the hard way. I got my first credit card when I was 18 years old, guys, and within a year, I had a balance on it that I could not pay, all right? And then it took me 10 years to get out of credit card debt, because you get multiple cards and then you rack up debt on multiple cards. And even though the most amount of debt that I had at one point, I think was probably $4,000, doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a hell of a lot of money when you don't make a lot of money and you're making the minimum interest payment on things. So it looks like the youngest generation is repeating this mistake over and over, and I get it. As someone who's been there, it's exciting to get a credit card for the first time, and it makes you feel grown up. You're over 18 now, you got a card that's in your name, it's not mom and dad's anymore. I'm gonna pay the bill, I'm gonna be responsible, but life happens and you just get carried away, which I think is probably the case for a lot of people in this age group, speaking from experience. And the thing about it right now is it's probably the worst time ever to go into credit card debt, because we're entering this recession and people are getting laid off, so it's going to be harder to pay the bills. And you combine that with the fact that interest rates are going up. On a new credit card, guys, if you don't have a lot of credit history or your credit's not good, your APR on your credit card right now could be over 30%. 30%, okay? And now you have more of these young people that are getting into credit card debt, not only having that, but also racking up more of these buy now, pay later type of loans as well. That's making a huge comeback, especially with the younger generation right now, because in an instant society where everybody wants instant gratification, people are just buying things now and worrying about paying for it tomorrow. But to me, this is very serious, because it sounds like too many young people are relying on their parents right now or their grandparents to get them through life, and they're not learning the financial skills that they are going to need desperately in this recession and beyond to really do well for themselves. And that's where my concern lies with this, because like I said, there's nothing wrong with getting temporary help, but when temporary turns into permanent or long-term, that's where the danger from this comes. But it seems like the common theme of this video is that everything is reaching historical levels, guys. You have the amount of young adults living with parents reaching historical levels. You have the amount of people diving further into credit card debt at historical levels. You have the amount of people who are living paycheck to paycheck reaching historical levels. I don't see a way that this ends well, People are gonna get burned from this, and that's really just the bottom line. But that is a huge reason why I make these type of videos for you guys, for anyone who's willing to watch or listen, so that way you don't become one of these people that gets burned, essentially. As of November 2022, 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck according to a survey from Lending Club. Now, the record high number is 64% of people living paycheck to paycheck, guys. Right now, the number is 63%. So we're basically at historically high numbers, okay? Meaning that there has never been so many people in this country living paycheck to paycheck than there are right now. And the crazy thing about it is, depending on who you ask, the recession hasn't even officially started yet, right? So once it really does, according to whoever's definition, who thinks that it hasn't started, then just imagine where things are gonna go from there. It's not like this is gonna get better next year. 2023 is gonna be a rough year, guys, because if you think it's just poor people who are living paycheck to paycheck, it's not. Even high income earners, meaning households that earn over 6 figures a year, meaning over $100,000 per year, 47% of those people have reported living paycheck to paycheck. So when you look at that, that's almost half of people who make 100K plus a year living paycheck to paycheck. So clearly you can see our nation has a problem with spending and debt and not being able to live within their means. Now, of course, it's not just all overspending and going into debt that's causing this. Obviously, inflation is playing a huge role in this as well. Because inflation has gotten to 40-year highs, the real actual wage growth of people has actually declined almost 2% year over year, guys, because even though people have gotten wage increases, the amount of inflation that we have is more than what people are making in terms of getting raises. So the raises have not been enough to keep up with inflation. So I've covered this before. Basically what's happening is, even though people are making more money, you're actually making less money because of inflation. When the cost of goods surpasses the increase you've gotten in your wages, it doesn't really matter, you know? So that's where we're at right now with this, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing record credit card debt and people living paycheck to paycheck. But of course, you just have a lot of irresponsibility in there as well. 32% of people are now saving less than they could a year ago, because remember, a year ago in 2021, everything was still booming. Housing market was still on fire. You know, people were making all this money. People were still getting unemployment money and stimulus benefits. Now that all that is over, you can see how quickly everything's starting to fall apart. 33% of adults that were surveyed with this Lending Club survey said that they feel very uncomfortable being able to afford a $400 emergency right now, and 8% said guaranteed they can't afford it at all. 400 bucks, guys. That's less than, you know, what I spend on groceries every month. That is not that much money, especially in today's world, but people are having a hard time coming up with a $400 emergency if they need it. So that is alarming. But I can tell you firsthand, as someone who has been dead broke with literally no money in the bank and like a few bucks in my pocket, people are going to have to want to get out of this situation, with a big capitalized want being the key here, guys. I mean, this is very similar to kicking a drug habit. If you want to get out of debt and you don't want to live with your parents anymore and you want to have some shot at success in life, the only way it's going to happen is if you make it happen. And I know that might sound kind of obvious, but you'd be amazed at the amount of people that think some sort of miracle is going to happen, or they're just going to get, you know, some kind of luck happen to them. They're going to get this amazing opportunity that's going to come out of the blue, or they're going to win the lottery, whatever. Most of that is highly unlikely. If you want things to happen and you want your situation to change, you have to be the one out there changing it. Because if you think you're going to stay living at home with mom and dad forever and keep maxing out your credit cards and keep living like that, this is not going to end well for you, guys. And most importantly, you're robbing yourself from your future ability to buy a home or to have a family or whatever your goals might be, because the more trouble you get into financially at a young age, the longer it's going to take you to get out as you get older. And I'm speaking from experience here, guys. It took me 10 years to get out from under $4,000 or $5,000 worth of credit card debt. I don't even remember the full number. And part of the reason I had such high credit card debt at the time was because I was broke and I was struggling here in Miami to pay the rent. So I had to pay the rent twice on the credit card, take out the cash advance and pay the rent. So that contributed big time to the amount of debt I had to take on, in a very short period of time. Now, I wish I never did that, but it taught me some very important financial lessons that I'm trying to preach to anyone listening here, that don't make these same mistakes. If it's not too late, and if you haven't done this yet, don't do it at all. And you're gonna thank me later for that. But I personally think that when you get started with your life, if you are younger and you're starting off at a time when times are not great, just like what happened to me, guys. I moved to Miami literally right as the last Great Recession was happening in real time. I moved here in January 2008, guys. This was like just the start of everything coming to an end and everything crashing, okay? There can be opportunity in that. There's learning opportunities of what to do and what not to do when you see everything crashing around you. And that's also why I've been making these videos, because I have seen this happen firsthand. And the signs of this happening all over again are everywhere. I personally like learning from other people's mistakes and not repeating them, but I understand that some people are just gonna have to learn the hard way as well. Now, here's the interesting thing to conclude this whole story with. There was another article talking about how Gen Z plans to retire a full decade before the baby boomers could, through smart financial planning and better and smarter investments and all of this. And the thing that I find interesting about this is the largest generation that's still living at home with their parents, but ironically enough, maybe that will actually help them actually get ahead in life if they're smart right now. If the smart ones are at home living with their parents saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to save as much money as I can. I'm going to invest as much as I can while I'm at home living with my parents to give myself the best head start, then maybe it's not such a bad thing. But if you're one of the Gen Z or millennials that is, diving into buy now, pay later loans and getting themselves further and further into credit card debt while living at home with mom and dad, the odds of you ever being able to retire are slim to none. And you need to realize that right now, because retirement is a long game, guys, and you have to start early if you want to have any shot at being able to retire. So I appreciate the confidence when I read that, showing that, a lot of young people think that they're going to be able to retire even sooner than basically the most successful generation in history could, which is the baby boomers. And yeah, sure, I hope you do, but the way it's going right now, it's not looking too good for you. Check this out. Doing the beach restoration out there. Can't even go out there because they got too many heavy machineries out there moving sand around, so gotta look at it from here. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video, and if you don't want to wait, check out this one over here, and I'll see you in the next one.